Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. I don't know where I am. We're on the United Stand, aren't we? We're talking Manchester United. It's been a busy day if you've been watching the World Cup stuff on That's Football, but we're here on the United Stand to give you the latest Manchester United news. We're in our new slot for the next few days, 9 o'clock at night, 9 a.m. in the morning instead of 10 o'clock in the morning and 9 p.m. at night. So 8 p.m. at night, sorry. So get involved with the show. Hope you're all doing very, very well. Lots to talk about. We're going to talk a bit about Cody GAKPO. I think that he is a very likely Manchester United target in January, and I think we learnt, or some people learnt today, that he can play as a number 9. Some people think he's a winger, so we'll talk about him. There's been an update on Mason Greenwood today, quite a big update on him. We'll talk about that. Also want to talk about some of the World Cup stuff, I suppose, how the England lads did. Positive day in general for Manchester United players, certainly for the England lads as well. And some talk around a new deal for Garnacho that looks like it's going to happen as well. And we've got the Christmas tree up if you didn't see it this morning. I think it might be snowing outside the window there with Old Trafford in the background. So we're feeling cosy. 9 o'clock shows for the next week or so. At night instead of 8 o'clock and 9 a.m. instead of 10 o'clock. So lots to get involved in. 57 minutes of stoppage time in 4 matches, says Matthew. I will just say that from the off. I don't know whether you've been watching the World Cup. I've just watched United States plays Wales. First half, they had 5 minutes on. Second half, they had 10 minutes on. That's 15 minutes of extra game time for players that are already being run into the ground. This is FIFA's new protocol for this World Cup. They're trying to stop time wasting, so they're adding on loads of time. These players have been playing 3 times a week, lads. 3 times a week to do this World Cup mid-season so you can make a load of money. They're going to be playing 3 times a week for 5 months afterwards so you can make a load of money in this World Cup. What the hell are you doing bringing in a protocol that makes them play more minutes? Absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. And look, Best Evan says, I love it. Are you going to love it when half our team's injured in February because they've been overplayed? It's disgusting. I think the way players are getting treated by the people in suits is disgusting. And only if you understand high-level sport and what it means and how hard it is to play at that intensity that regularly will you realise what I've been saying for a long time. The second half of this season is going to be carnage. There's going to be so many injuries. You can't get players to play high-level football for 90 minutes and then ask them to play another 15 to 20 on top as well. Disgusting. They haven't thought it through. But Dylan says you're crying about adding 8 minutes. Mate, it was 5 minutes in the first half and it was 10 minutes in the second half. That's 15 minutes. Quick maths. Get back to school, Dylan. School time tomorrow. Ronnie, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you. Anyway, let's bring it back to Manchester United. We're going to start off talking with Cody GAKPO. I'd love to be talking with Cody GAKPO. Let's talk about Cody GAKPO. This guy can play up front. I think some United fans who don't watch football have got it in their head that Cody GAKPO is just Marcus Rashford. He can play up front, but he's a winger. You're wrong. You're very, very wrong. He's a completely different profile to Marcus Rashford. They are similar in the sense that they're right-footers playing off the left, and you know that's what Rashford is. But they're not similar in the sense that they're identical in their style of play. Cody GAKPO, for me, is a much more suitable player to play through the middle. And the goal he scored today and the movement in the box, that was very, very striker-esque. So, look, we're not buying a number 9 if we buy Cody GAKPO, but you are buying a player that can become a number 9. I mean, if you look at somebody like a Thierry Henry who's gone from the left to the right, or if you look at somebody like an Anthony Martial or someone like that, I wouldn't. What I'm trying to say is I wouldn't be somebody who is opposed to Cody GAKPO because you think he's a winger. I think he's definitely the profile of player that can play through the middle and give us an option there. So I think that I'd be very interested to see if Ten Hag is still very much looking at this player like he was in the summer, because I think the good thing about this World Cup and the bad thing about this World Cup is that if he plays really, really well in this World Cup, then we may see a situation where more clubs come in for him. So we may not want him to have the best World Cup, but then you've got people who've never watched him play who are watching him and going... I was watching the watch along with Charlie and Adam on That's Football, And I was reading the chat while I was watching the game, and people were going, oh, he's not that good, he's bang average. And that's the problem. I don't necessarily want him to be amazing, because then you'll get bigger clubs coming in for him. But if he's not amazing, people will say, I don't want him. So it's a double-edged sword, really. But look, I think Ten Hag appreciates this player. He likes this player. And I think what is very clear is he's definitely a talent who can play in most positions along the front three. And I'd be very surprised if his evolution is not to a centre-forward. I think that is where he's heading as a player. Now, whether he's heading to Manchester United or not, I'll be very surprised if we revisited this in 2 or 3 years' time and Cody Gakpo's not playing as a centre-forward. I think that's exactly where he's going to end up. I watched the Dutch. He is a player for us, says Tumbleweed. And of course, I think that why are you always spitting facts, says Faison. I think that I don't always spit facts. I think that as well, if you go back to Manchester United 2 or 3 years ago, when we had that front three that scored a lot of goals, Rashford, Martial, Greenwood, they interchanged. I know we didn't win anything, but they interchanged and they scored a lot of goals. And is that not ideal? Is that what we that might work for us as well? So, you know, I think he's a very interesting player. I think that we need a player in January. He's got the same agent as Erik Ten Hag. He's available in January, and Ten Hag wanted him in August. And I think he's a really exciting player. And I would be very happy if that's the player that we're going to go for. But I think the biggest problem is we may face real big competition for him. Anyone who says Bellingham over De Jong is a clown. We need a player who can carry the ball like that. Did you all see how he was running the game, says Akrama. I mean, De Jong's going to stay at Barcelona now, isn't it? I mean, I don't know whether anybody's seen the comments from Frankie De Jong. I think it's very, very obvious that he's going to be, you know, he spoke about wanting to stay in Barcelona for 10 years. He's won his place back for Barcelona. I don't think that, I mean, I think Ten Hag's priority signing when he came to United was De Jong. His number one signing priority was De Jong, and I'm sure he still is De Jong. But I think that deal's getting further away rather than closer. I think it's a very, very different, very, very difficult deal to do. And I think we needed to do it in the summer. But if we'd done it in the summer, I don't think we would have got Casemiro. And personally, I still think Casemiro is a more important signing than De Jong, because Casemiro's made us play in a different way. He's made us be able to get hold of the midfield. He's made us possession go up. So I'd like Casemiro and De Jong, but I think if we'd got De Jong, we wouldn't have got Casemiro. So, you know, I like De Jong, but I think by not getting De Jong, we've got Casemiro, and then maybe we go and get somebody else as well. What do you think about Timothy Weah from the US? Well, I think we've got. Look, we're in the World Cup. Most of us are watching the World Cup. It's absolutely fine to bring that in, and I think you've got to watch the World Cup and see if there's anything there. I mean, Jonathan David will be an interesting one to look at on Wednesday night. But Weah, I thought he looked decent, but I don't think he's what United are looking for. I don't think he's what United are looking for. Stephen, thank you very much for the super chat. And Savage says, we're always looking for big names. This is what's wrong. I think you've just got to trust the manager, haven't you? Erik Ten Hag, that's what you've got to look at. There we go. Lots to discuss. 2 things I wanted to talk about as well. Mason Greenwood updates. Obviously, unfortunately, we've had to give some Mason Greenwood updates over the last, 11 months now, isn't it? It was January it first came out. So there's been a significant update today. As we know with Mason Greenwood, he was charged a month or so ago and awaiting trial date. Back in court today in Manchester, trial date provisionally listed for November 2023. So this is not going to be in court for another year. In another year, he won't have played football for Manchester United for nearly 2 years. What more can you say? I mean, that's the update. I mean, we can all start saying lots of different things, and a lot of people say things I don't think they should be saying about things they don't understand that are very, very sensitive. But it is an official update. It has come through the courts. He was in court today, and he will be in court in November 2023 at the earliest, by the sounds of it, which will be, you know, approaching halfway through next season, and we're not even halfway through this season yet. So I suppose at some point, that's a good point. At some point, you've got to look at the length of his contract, and I just wanted to have a look at that. I mean, he will obviously and is innocent and proven until proven guilty. That is the law of the UK, and that's very important to remember. So I don't think there's going to be a scenario where he's not going to be paid or anything like that because he's innocent until proven guilty. But I did just want to have a quick look while we are live and see if we can see what contract he was on at Manchester United. I mean, it might get to a point where Manchester United have a chat with him and say, we'll pay your contract off, let's agree something. So 2025 his contract. So he's still got another, even when the court case happens next November, he'll still have 18 months on his deal. So it's a long contract, which you can understand at the time when it was signed, of course. But Brian says, hi Mark, got my jumper today, looks great. Worried about injuries for Man United players upon return from the World Cup. They're playing too much extra time. I agree, Brian. Happy with Casemiro signing for the reasons you mentioned. I watched De Jong today and he lost the ball in dangerous positions many times. I just think Casemiro is a more suitable signing for what we need at the moment. Well done on some amazing content over the last few days. Thank you very much, Just Me. So yeah, that's the update on Mason Greenwood. He won't be playing for Man United for at least another year, if he ever plays again. We don't know about that, but court case in a year's time. Takes a long time to get a case to court, doesn't it? So yeah, that's the update with him, which should stop all the nonsense and crap you get on Twitter every couple of weeks about bringing him back into the team and stuff. So there we go. What happens if he's proven innocent? Will he have a chance to have a career? Cross that bridge when we get to it. We're not going to be crossing it for a while. Let me just get rid of that idiot in the chat. There we go. Okay, back to the news. So we've spoken about Cody Gakpo. That's the Greenwood update. Garnacho. I don't know whether anybody's seen it today or yesterday. The Garnacho deal is looking very, very good. Fabrizio Romano was speaking about it and said that they've been in talks with Garnacho since June. And the rumour is that it's going to be £50,000 a week and a 5-year deal. I think he's currently on £5,000 a week. I mean, that's still pretty good. £5,000 a week, isn't it? What's that? £5,000 a week, 250 grand a year. Not many people are earning that. So £5,000 a week at the moment. It's going to go to 50 grand a week, and the deal will be done. It's a big thing. It's a big deal. I think most of us would sit down and say, do it. He looks very, very exciting, but. Of course, we paid Brandon Williams about 50 grand a week, and that was a mistake, wasn't it? I mean, a few good performances at left back, and you get a big pay rise to 50 grand a week. So we've got it wrong in the past, but I think, and he's not the only one. I'm not digging out Brandon Williams at all. I just don't think he's a 50 grand a week player. But fair play to him for getting that deal, and well done to his agent. But with Garnacho, we didn't have Barcelona and Bayern Munich and PSG looking at Brandon Williams. We have got that with Garnacho. It's a different type of player. You've got to pin him down. You've got to get him on a deal, and I think it's the right thing to do. Sean Atwood says, glad they're adding all the time on from all the flopping around and milking throw-ins, goal kicks. Tired of seeing 65 minutes of actual football, says Sean. I think you're missing the point, Sean. We're talking about player welfare. We're not talking about whether you're satisfied at the end of a match. That it's not like putting your hot water on and getting the maximum out of it. This is about player welfare. If you're asking footballers to play another 15 to 20 minutes every time they play 90 minutes, their bodies aren't going to be able to deal with it. So, let's do it all because people want a bit more time. I think these players are going to, I genuinely think they're going to struggle. Thoughts on Tyler Adams, says Daniel. Good player, very good player. But obviously, I don't think it's a player that United are going to look at. I was asked that question, funnily enough, watching the USA tonight, would I take any of their players for England, for United? And I said that, if anything, I'd probably take one of their midfielders based on the first half. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Make sure you smash a like on the video if you're watching, by the way. That brings me on what I wanted to talk about next, actually. I did just want to very, very quickly talk about the English Man United players because... I was over the moon for Marcus Rashford. Came off the bench, could have had 2 goals, took his first goal so nice and clean, sent the Iranian defender to the shops and then, passed it into the bottom corner with his left foot. Looked sharp, looked on it. Really, really positive Marcus Rashford performance. This is going to ruin the season for many players, says Jaden. They're just running him into the ground, mate. They're running into... I've said this on the United stand so many times. You cannot get a footballer to play 3 times a week for the first 3 months of the season so you can shoehorn a World Cup in and then get them to play 3 times a week from January till May so that you can finish the season. And then in the World Cup, have them play every 3 or 4 days, but add another 15, 20 minutes on. I mean, it's just physically going to burn players out, but it's all about the money, isn't it? Of course, that's what it's all about. It's all, and the players are paid well, but they're going to pay the price with their bodies at some point. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. Marcus Rashford played really, really well. Didn't start, obviously, but did a good job. Luke Shaw played 90 minutes. Luke Shaw at the moment, when he almost, there's a lot of power in it, but you see it for United recently. He just walks onto the ball or jogs onto the ball and caresses it with this. As soon as it leaves his foot, he's not blasting it. It's not hit and hope. He just caresses it with the inside of his left foot and whips it in. And Bellingham scored this time, but we've seen it happen with Rashford recently. And Luke Shaw at the moment's just got that. He's in that groove of, getting himself back to where he was probably around the last time England did well in a tournament for the Euros. He's absolutely getting himself back there. The stamina's there. The concentration's there. Tidy on the ball. Really good game from Luke Shaw. Rather get proven striker like Ben Yedder for 15 million in January and spend big on youngster in summer. GAKPO, jack of all trades, master of none, says Duncan. I completely disagree. And also the fact that you're comparing GAKPO to Garnacho really shows me that you don't really know much about GAKPO. I mean, you can't say we don't need GAKPO, we've got Garnacho. There's no similarity. You're just thinking that he's a left winger, and they're very different. I mean, GAKPO was playing behind the two strikers today for the Netherlands. Like, he wasn't even playing on the wing. So appreciate the player before you start going, this, that, and the other. If you don't want to buy him, that's fine. Of course, that's what opinion's all about. But you can't say we've got Garnacho. They're totally different. You can't play Garnacho up front to get on the end of crosses. You could do that with GAKPO. Might as well wrap the title for City, because unless you have a squad like theirs, you're literally not winning anything. Integrity of the league is in question, says K-Flow. And that brings me to Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire today. What did we think about Harry Maguire? I thought Harry Maguire played well today. I mean, he was at fault for the goal, but nobody's perfect. I think we do judge every player in the modern game on any mistake makes you shit. You know what? I guarantee you, when we had Rio and Vidic, we conceded goals, and Rio or Vidic lost their man at times. It happens. It doesn't mean that singularly doesn't mean you had a bad game. But I do think there's always a but with Harry Maguire. That is the problem, and that's why he's now our fourth choice centre back. I think he does certain things very, very well, but there's always a but with his performance. And I thought he played well today, but he cost England a goal. But the big thing I wanted to talk about Harry Maguire that I think was really, really important is he did play well today, but why does he play well for England and not well for Manchester United? And my theory on this is that and it's something I've said about international football for a long time. International football is not as quick or as intense as domestic football. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because you're putting together a set of players that don't play together very often, so they never get the rhythm or the intensity going. It's always in short bursts. But international football is definitely slower, and that suits Harry. We put better crosses into the box for England, and that suits Harry, because there's better deliveries of crosses from people like Trippier, etc. And also, I think when you're playing somebody like Iran or Wales, you're going to not be tested as much, and you get a lot more time on the ball. And I think Maguire, when he's got a lot of time on the ball, actually, under no pressure, is pretty good on the ball as well. So I think it's a good observation, and it's a correct observation that Harry Maguire plays better for England, because England play a lot of their games against teams that sit back. You think about all the qualifiers we play. We play a lot of teams where they sit back. We don't have to defend as much. So that's obviously going to help Harry. And it's a slower intensity. And also, a lot of England games have been played with a back five as well. So I thought he played well today. And I think solving the riddle of why he plays well for England and not Manchester United, the Premier League is way more intense and quicker and competitive than international football. And I think that's it. And some people struggle with that, and some people excel with that. And I think it suits Maguire. I think he suits international football. And it takes me back to when we bought him. And I remember when we paid £80 million, and I said, well, I think he is an £80 million centre back. But I'll be absolutely honest. Virtually every performance I'd seen Harry Maguire play well was England. And and their end of the lesson, don't you? International football is not Premier League football. Sean says, just because they're standing on a pitch for 90 minutes does not mean they're physically playing for 90 minutes, says Sean. Okay, Sean. But at the end of the day, you're asking elite athletes to play 15 to 20 minutes more. It's going to have an impact. Kay says, to your point, Mark, only Spain literally play at the same intensity because most of their players, at least historically, were from Madrid and Barcelona. I think that's a great point, Kay. I think the problem and reason why international football is slower is because you're putting together a load of players that don't play together, and therefore your intensity and speed come from familiarity. Look at Man City, So yeah, that probably explains it. But all in all, I think it was a good day. I mean, I know Malacia didn't play for the Dutch, but I think it was a good day for the Man United players. I'd like to see Rashford getting into the team. I think he's better than Sterling at the moment, but people probably won't like that. But Luke Shaw's doing well. He's not going to have any competition at left back, and I think Maguire's going to play. So probably does need the game time. I didn't compare Gakpo to Garnacho. Garnacho's Rashford's backup. Gakpo specialises in no position that we need, and there are better backup strikers. Duncan, you're really up your own arse aggressive, and you don't need to be. I completely disagree with you, Duncan. You don't need to come back at me. I disagree with you that Gakpo specialises in no position, and that we need a better backup striker. I actually think Gakpo is exactly what we need. Because actually he's a left-sided forward, but he can play through the middle, and he can actually play behind the striker. So you are getting a player that can play up front, off the left, probably off the right, and if you want to play front two, he can play off the striker. So I actually think we do need that sort of player. I know I agree with you, Duncan, that some people just want an out-and-out striker, but as about having a striker who can play in other positions as well, I think fluidity is important. I think what you don't want to be in is a position where we are now, where it's Ronaldo and Martial, and you've got to play Rashford up front because Martial's injured and Ronaldo's moody. I think that Gakpo would be the right player to go for. And ultimately as well, Duncan, I think people can agree with you, or they can agree with me, or they can have their own opinion. But I'll go back to what I've said. Ten Hag wanted him in the summer. He's got the same agent as Ten Hag. PSV are happy to deal with us. For me, it's about what the manager wants. And of course, you can add in opinion. That's what it's all about. But I think he's I watched that game. I played the game. I watched that game today. I've seen him quite a lot for PSV this season. I must admit, in the summer when we were linked to him, I didn't know a massive amount about him. But when United get linked to I remember us being linked to Lindelof in the January, and I didn't know a lot about him at Benfica. And between January and the summer, I made a point of trying to watch them when I could. And I didn't watch loads. I probably watched 3 or 4 games. But I've watched Gakpo, and I'm sure a lot of people have watched Gakpo. And I'm not going to be that person who has watched every game for PSV. I haven't watched any Eredivisie at all. I've watched a few Europa League games. But I think I'd be very happy if we bought him, because it's about trusting the manager. Now, look, if we don't buy Gakpo and he goes for Jonathan David, I'll back that. And I'm interested to see what this Jonathan David's all about. But I think Gakpo's the player. I said this at the weekend. I think this is the player that United want. Now, the big problem they've got is if the Dutch do well and he scores goals, it won't just be Man United after him. It won't be Leeds and Southampton. It will be bigger clubs than that. So the question is, and I've said this before as well, are Man United putting the groundwork in? This is not he looks nice, let's have a chat about him in mid-January. This is November the 21st, 5 weeks away from the start of the transfer window. We should already be talking to his bloody agent. We should already be talking to PSV. We should be wrapping this deal up for Christmas. This should be January the 1st, you're a Man United player. I do not want to see the normal United tactic, what we did with Bruno, where we knew we needed Bruno, and we needed Bruno on January the 1st, and we brought him in right at the end of the month. Save a bit on wages, negotiate all through the month. We lost to Burnley at Old Trafford a few days before we signed Bruno, and we've been negotiating for 3 weeks. If we'd have got Bruno in at the start, we probably wouldn't have lost that game to Burnley. And now it didn't matter in the end because we still got top 4, but we need these players to be coming in at the start of January. There's no excuse when you've got 5 weeks of not playing any football to not be negotiating for players for January. Other clubs are doing it. We need to be doing it. So we need to be working on this. now. I know Gakpo's at the World Cup, but players are at the World Cup in June. You still have signings in July, so I think we need to get working on it. There may well be competition for this signing if he has a really good World Cup. It's not unreasonable to say that Gakpo could be one of the standout players from the World Cup, in which case we're in trouble. So, Ulf says that Jonathan David's better than you think. Not watched much of Jonathan David. Really haven't watched a lot of him. Don't really like scouting people in a World Cup because, as I said, international football is slower. I thought Weah looked very good for USA today, but it is international football. It's slower, so you've got to be very careful. But I'm looking forward to watching him on Wednesday night against Belgium. I mean, Belgium are a good team, so he'll be up against some good defenders. I think we should get David instead of Gakpo. David is more of a striker, says half. Well, we'll have to take a look. Irish says PSV won't negotiate because they definitely know his price is going up. No, I disagree. I think PSV are open to do a deal. Traditionally, Dutch clubs don't really start asking for stupid money. I think that they set a realistic price, and PSV are ready to cash in. Now, obviously, there may well be competition there, but it's pretty much universally understood that PSV know they're going to sell Gakpo in January. So we'll see what happens. And clubs like PSV, they want to take the money and reinvest it, and they'll be looking at their own. So yeah. More for Wales made the difference. Should keep an eye on him. We should play Scooby-Doo as striker, says Danush. And last summer was agony. Arnold will want to spend 100 million on Bale, says Michael Vine. And also, I think we should get David. Oh, and I've read that one as well. And Jonathan David, probably another Nicolas Pepe. You've got to be careful of the French league. I mean, point in question, Weah for USA today plays for, I think he plays for Lille, doesn't he? He looked handy, but I wouldn't be, let's go and get him for Man United. I think you've got to go with what the manager wants, and I do think at the moment that Ten Hag is probably looking at Gakpo. And Gakpo's tall, isn't he? What is he, 6'2"? There's a lot to work with Gakpo. It surprises me that people think he's one-dimensional and a winger. He's 6'2". He's 23. He's only just 23. And he's got 36 goals in 106 games for PSV. He's more than a winger. 6'2", scoring a goal every 3 games off the wing for PSV. I'm not saying he's coming to United, but he's definitely going to be a forward. He's a player. He's a developmental player. He's the sort of player we should be looking at. He's a developmental player with gears to go through. And I'm not saying he's going to be one of the world's best, but I certainly think he's one of those players that you look at and you go, we should be looking at him. And Ten Hag certainly is. So we'll see what happens. We'll all be watching Jonathan David on Wednesday. And look, Till, I keep mentioning it, and he's mentioned it as well, one of our members. Ten Hag literally can talk to his agent about Gakpo. It's very straightforward. They share the same agents. Like, literally, Ten Hag could be on the phone tonight going, what are PSV saying about Gakpo then? Oh, they want 50 million. Okay, well, we'll look elsewhere. No, they want to sell him, and they'll sell him for 40 million. Right, get us in there. We want him. I want him. I'll sort it at my end. Get him sorted, yeah? It's a very doable deal for United when your agent is the same agent as Cody Gakpo, because legitimately you can find a hell of a lot about what's going on. Think of it like this. Barcelona want Cody Gakpo. They approach the agent. The agent goes to Ten Hag. Barcelona are in. It's not tapping up. It's just inside info. So do I want it to be Gakpo? I'd be very happy if it is, to be honest. I sort of don't. I want us to, I want a few weeks of excitement, and we're looking at this, we're looking at that, and I'm sure we'll get that. But ultimately, if we end up with Gakpo, I do like the look of him. And the thing that always intrigues me is when Ten Hag wants them. We've seen it with Malacia, we've seen it with Martinez, we've seen it with Anthony, we've seen it with Eriksen. When Ten Hag wants them, it's worked out well for us so far. So, yeah, long may that continue, I think. But, yeah, we'll see what happens. Sesko's a player that, I don't think that can happen till the summer. And, he he does look very good, but unfortunately you've got the whole Salzburg to Leipzig thing. We agreed whatever striker we get won't score goals as we don't create chances, says Mark. And Mark, after Ronaldo's interview, do you think it's going to be hard for United to sign elite footballers because our standard as a football club will drop, says Abra. I think Ronaldo's up here, isn't he, as a profile player. Maybe you would struggle to bring in a Benzema or a Neymar or maybe a high profile player would look at Ronaldo and go, I don't fancy that. I don't think Cody Gakpo is going to look at it and go, I don't want to leave PSV to go and play for Ten Hag at Manchester United. I think that would be a dream move to someone like Cody Gakpo. So no is the short answer. I don't think Ronaldo's interview is going to present a problem for Manchester United to sign players, if I'm honest. Swap Ronaldo for Aubameyang for 6 months, says Steve. God. Ivan Toney, I don't think United will go anywhere near Ivan Toney at the moment with all these gambling things. Whether that's right or wrong, I just don't think they will. We didn't go near Basuma for the same problem because he was on bail, obviously, for police offences as well. So I don't think United would go anywhere near him. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see anyway. Right, I'm going to go and have a shower. It's been a long old day, but it's nice to have a little bit of a catch-up at the end of it. The 9 o'clock show is here every night this week, so make sure you tune in after the last World Cup game. We'll have a chat about the latest Manchester United news. There's quite a lot to get into there, wasn't there? Don't forget, tomorrow's morning show will be at 9 a.m. because I'm doing a watch-along at 10 a.m. Argentina, the first game. Martinez hopefully will be playing. Messi will, I'm sure. So 9 o'clock show tomorrow morning. I'll be live again. Take care, everyone. It's a weird time at the moment, isn't it? All this World Cup stuff and everything going on. It's a bit weird. We're not used to it at this time of the year. But, it's a good day. I hope you've had a good day as well. Take care, everyone. Make sure you smash a like, and I'll speak to you soon.